let Rudolph lead you all the way like Santa's sleigh tonight to the end zone. That's what I'm hoping for, guys.
It took Mason Rudolph only 2 plays to guide the offense to the end zone.
Caught by Pickens. He's on his way. He's at the 40, the 50, the 45, the 40. Here comes George Pickens all the way for a Pittsburgh Steelers touchdown. 86 yards.
And don't you know it, that's sweeter than Nellie's blueberry pie, baby. What a Christmas treat. That is absolutely the best throw to start things off right there. Wow.
Fellas, that is fireworks, and this stadium has been waiting for that moment all season.
Way to start a game.
Here we go. This pass is caught, and that's a touchdown.
That's the way to work. Come on.
He's been sacked. The Steelers win the football game.
Let's go.
Come get it. You know what it is.
This one is in the history books.
Here we go.
Welcome to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show. I'm Missy Matthews. As the clock winded down to zeros at Acrisure Stadium just a few hours before Christmas Eve, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer blared throughout the venue. It was a request by Mason Rudolph's teammates, who were happy to see him succeed in his first start since 2021, but also because he saved Christmas in the Steelers' playoff hopes. For more on how the Steelers swept the Bengals for the first time since 2019, let's welcome in Bob Pompeani, who's with Coach Tomlin. Guys.
Missy, thanks very much. Hope you had a great Christmas. And I know the Steelers got Christmas going with an early gift for everyone with a big win over Cincinnati 34-11. Head coach Mike Tomlin is here. First of all, hope you had a nice holiday. Was Kia happy with your present giving?
She was, but her expectations are pretty low. She realized I'm somewhat distracted this time of year, and she does a really good job of supporting me and through this time of year, and I'm appreciative of that.
Mason Rudolph got the job done when he was in there, some big plays. Talk about his performance and your expectations moving forward.
You know, I think his performance was kind of in line with what we talked about in terms of his capabilities last week. First, he's got, an unshakable confidence in himself, and that's helpful, particularly from a backup quarterback perspective. And secondarily, he's aggressive, and I think that was reflected throughout, particularly the 3rd and 1 there in the third quarter where he hit George Pickens on a long touchdown pass in a seemingly a short yardage situation. I think that's reflective of aggressiveness schematically. And so he gave us what we anticipated. We played a good game. He played a good game. We got the desired result, and so we'll do similar things this week.
You often talk about how defenses scheme. That's basically how you're going to attack what you see. It seemed like they were really expecting to shut down Pat Freiermuth. As a result, the outside became available, single coverage. When you see that, is that a green light normally?
I just think that's the nature of intimate relationships. Last time we played him, I think Pat had 9 for 120, and that was just a short number of weeks ago. And so I don't think any of us were shocked by some of the schematic things that work to minimize him, particularly in situational moments. And I think the 2 minute before the half is reflective of that. They were in a lot of quarters concepts, shutting down the middle of the field in that 2 minute sequence. We were able to get a big play outside, and coupled with some other things, we're able to get a field goal, but that is reflective of their agenda. And it's just intimacy of relationships. The waters run deep. It runs deep on the other side. We have an intimate relationship regarding some of their eligibles, and sometimes it's chess, not checkers.
George Pickens was a topic of conversation a lot through the previous week. Did you sense that he was more motivated this game coming into it? Based on the performance, it certainly seems that way.
I don't know that he was any more motivated. Man, he is a competitor. He always wants the ball. He always wants to be a central component of why we're successful. So I don't know that I saw anything different in his approach. Obviously, we're excited about the result and the production that we got.
The toe tap, to me, there were some big plays, the 86-yarder to 66, but the toe tap was like, when you see that play fast motion, there's no way he makes that catch, and yet the toes were in. Does that surprise you from him?
No, and not only from him, but from our collective. Skills relative to the position is what we call it. Receivers display those type of talents routinely, but more importantly, they work at it in skill development. It's part of our daily routine in terms of warming up every day at the position, just focus on the ball while tapping or dragging toes. And so it's just good to see fundamental things being displayed on tape.
Yeah, that was an unusual one. He was going backwards. It was a thing of beauty when you think about it. And I said Gene Kelly would have been proud of that. One of the best dancers ever come out of Pittsburgh. All right, let's talk defense. You've had a lot of injuries. You got another one dealing with Landon Roberts. That whole inside linebacking group, which you guys so hard, in the offseason work to fix, is now gone. And then you look at it, you had 3 interceptions and 3 sacks. You had to be happy with what those guys did, given, a lot of them came in last minute.
We were pleased with what they were able to do, but we were also very prudent about what we asked them to do, and we talked about that some last week. Dealing with injuries and attrition in game sometimes is extremely challenging. We lost 2 safeties in back-to-back plays for various reasons in Indy. It was going to be challenging for the remainder of the day from a depth perspective. But nothing really happened in game. We had 7 days to prepare. I'm appreciative of the efforts of Pat Peterson, man, and Eric Rowe. Can't say enough about their versatility and their willingness, and it was on display. But when we got 7 days to prepare, we're pretty comfortable that we can divide the labor up appropriately, and I think the outcome was reflective of that.
We often sit here and you talk about opportunities when they come for guys. I imagine players like that, they're all very talented. They just need a chance to come in, whether it's Miles Jack coming from a retirement or anyone else just looking to extend a career. Do you appreciate those kinds, and do you look forward to coaching those kinds of people?
I love it. It's not anything mystical about it. It is a tangible thing. That's why we have guys like Miles Jack and Eric Rowe on our practice squad. They're not there for development. They're there in case we need them. They're veteran guys. They know what to do. They've got in-game defensive experience, and it showed.
It certainly did. Steelers come away with a very impressive win, 34-11, as the record now sits at 8-7. 2 very big games coming up. It starts with Seattle, and when we come back, Missy, we're going to talk about the Seahawks. Very similar to the Steelers, 8 wins, 7 losses, and they need a win as well. That's next. Missy, back to you.
All right, thanks, Bob. And similar to the Steelers earlier this season, the Seahawks have been winning close games at the end. They're the second team in NFL history to have 2 different quarterbacks throw a game-winning touchdown in back-to-back games in the final minute of regulation. Coming up later in the show, Merrill Hodge draws up a playbook featuring George Pickens, who produced some impressive next-gen stats last week. Pickens was the fastest recorded ball carrier in the league for Week 16 on his 86-yard TD. He was clocked at 21.54 miles per hour. That and his 66-yard TD are now the 2 fastest plays for the Steelers ever. He's also among the top 16 in the NFL this season. The 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show will be right back.
Welcome back to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show.
For the Steelers to keep their playoff hopes alive, they have to win their last 2 games and get some help. First up is a place where they haven't won in more than 40 years. Pittsburgh is 1-7 in Seattle, with their lone win coming in 1983 with a backup quarterback to boot. For more on how the Steelers can reverse history in the Pacific Northwest, let's head back to Bob and Coach. Guys.
Hey, Missy, thanks very much. Seattle, not an easy place to play over the years. The Steelers, like a lot of teams, have had their issues over there. What is it about traveling all the way over there, or is it a thing, or do we make too much of it?
A lot's made of it, to be quite honest with you. I try not to let the outcome of games be a mystical thing. It's preparation and then ultimately play. Obviously, we got some logistical adjustments because of the coast-to-coast travel, but we've done that already this year. We've been to LA and so forth, and so we'll make whatever necessary logistical or itinerary-like adjustments, but it'll be a non-factor relative to our play.
Geno Smith is a guy who finally got an opportunity on a legitimate basis last year, made the most of it, came back from injury last week. His game took a while to get opportunities. We talked about opportunities last segment. When he got it, boy, he jumped at it. What has turned it on for him as a quarterback over the last 2 years?
Sometimes it's environmental. He got drafted into a tough circumstance as a young guy, but he stayed after it and worked in the wings for quite a few years there behind Russell Wilson. And obviously they had a great deal of confidence in him. When Russell left to Denver, man, they didn't make a lot of substantial moves relative to the quarterback position, and It's kind of been reflected in his production and consistency, that belief. But just watching him play and compete, he's got a steady demeanor. He behaves like a veteran. There's prudent use of mobility. His arm talent has never been a question. And so it really just appears to be a guy that's maturing in a really good location for him and doing really good things for them.
And it helps to have a trio of wide receivers who are getting it done, led by Metcalf. Talk about what you have to do to, you got a lot of new guys on defense now, and I imagine scheme is going to play a big role in this game.
No question, we're concerned about their dynamic receivers, Metcalf and company. But just the state that we're in, we're focused on what it is that we do, how to best divide our labor up, how to best utilize the talents of the people that we have, and probably what's going on with them, although we respect it, is secondary because of current issues regarding depth and player availability.
The other thing that they do is utilize their tight ends. Your team has had some issues with big tight ends. They have 3 that they utilize there. Is that going to be a big part of your plan going into this game?
I got a lot of respect for their tight ends, but I'm not going to hate if they're throwing them the ball. That just means they're not throwing it to Metcalf and Lockett and Smith because those guys are really talented. I mean, we're talking about top round draft picks, over a lot of years, Lockett and Metcalf, and now the young one out of Ohio State. And so they got some weapons on the outside, obviously, as you mentioned. They got some weapons on the inside, and we'll be thoughtful about how we work to minimize all of the above.
I know you have an appreciation for guys who've done this for a long time. And Bobby Wagner, second tour of duty, I've looked at the numbers, 154 tackles at age 33. It's pretty amazing.
Yes, and you're talking about a guy who's been playing within that system for such a long time. And when you know what you're doing, you grow old gracefully. You don't see a bunch of false steps from him. He's moving in the direction that he needs to move. His eyes are really awesome and disciplined. Very rarely is he out of place. And I think experience like that and experience in a system allows people at times to grow old in a very graceful manner. It reminds me a lot of Thomas Davis in Carolina, for example, in terms of the consistency, in terms of the things that they ask him to do, and the comfort level in which he does it.
They also get pressure on the quarterback. They had 5 sacks, I believe, last week against Tennessee. Your offensive line is going to be put to a test this week against that front that they have.
No question. Not only do they have quality people, and a lot of them, the recent acquisition of Leonard Williams being an example of that. They added to an already deep group, but also the environmental component. It is a tough and loud place to play. Silent counts are routine, and so you better be on schedule. If you're behind schedule in that environment working on a silent count, all that does is enhance the rush, and we can't allow that to happen.
The one thing I've looked at numbers, they've given up some yards in the run game the last 5 games. I think over 160 yards per game on average. Is that an invitation for your run game to get cranking?
Potentially, again, environmentally, it has a lot to do with it. If you look at some recent contests, for example, Philadelphia's got a lot of designed quarterback runs, which are capable of inflating the run number perspective. San Francisco was a division opponent where that relationship is intimate, and it was in San Francisco, for example. And so, although they've given up some yards, we don't necessarily apply that to our circumstance. We got some work ahead of us in terms of doing what we need to do in that area.
It's a big game coming up. Coach, thanks. When we come back, the keys to this game, Seahawks and Steelers coming at you at 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. Missy, we'll talk about it when we come back.
And Sunday also means it's time to ring in 2024, Bob. For the Steelers, they are 3-1 on New Year's Eve, including 2-0 on the road. Up next, a Pickens playbook by Merrill Hodge. Number 14's 86-yard touchdown versus the Bengals was the longest TD reception in offensive play from scrimmage in the NFL this season. Now it's time for this week's Yinz Chat trivia question. Who had more receiving yards in a game versus Seattle? Marcus Wheaton or Mike Wallace? We'll tell you after the break.
Welcome back to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show.
Your Yinz Chat trivia answer is Marcus Wheaton with 201 yards during the 2015 season. Each week, answer Steelers trivia and make game day picks for a chance to win signed helmets, jerseys, footballs, or even a trip to the 2024 NFL Draft. Answer the day's questions correctly and get double the points. Just log into the Steelers mobile app now and play for a chance at this week's prize, a football autographed by George Pickens. Mason Rudolph brought the Steelers offense back to life in Week 16, and wide receiver George Pickens benefited the most. He now joins Louis Lipps as the only players in team history to have two 60-plus yard TD receptions in the same game. And for more on his career night, here's Merrill Hodge with this week's playbook.
Hi everyone, welcome into the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex for the Acrisure Playbook. This week we're going to take a look at Mason Rudolph and how he played. And there's a variety of things that you got to do well to be consistent at playing quarterback in the National Football League. Two of them that everybody would agree on. You got to process things, you got to be accurate. Well, he did those to perfection. But there's one other area, actually two areas, that really stood out to me as I studied him that without playing for 2 years actually was shocking. And that is his pocket presence and his anticipation. It was like he had been playing for 10 years. So we're going to take a look at the 3rd and 1 play where he throws it to George Pickens.
The Bengals bring the blitz. Touch pattern down the left sideline. And it's dragged. There goes George Pickens to the 10-5 touchdown.
So let's go to the 3rd and 1. Now listen, 3rd and 1 is usually a run down. So that's the first thing. What is interesting is Mason already knows what the routes are. The very top of the screen, you have one-on-one across the board. But the top of the screen, you have slants. Okay, those slants are going to give you a first down. George Pickens has a go route here at the bottom of the screen, and that's going to give you a touchdown. If he chooses to go to George Pickens, which we all know he goes there, is the hardest throw. But what is impressive about the throw is the anticipation of it. This ball is already gone. George Pickens doesn't even know the ball is coming until here in just a split second where he turns his head. Once he turns his head, what is most impressive is the accuracy in which the ball is thrown. The feel from the pocket the entire game was extremely impressive. I mean, George Pickens does not break stride there. That is one of the hardest throws to make in football, and you have to have a lot of guts if you're going to throw it. Now, what you can't overlook is the pass protection. Now, this ball comes out quick, so that helps, but throughout the day, this offensive line was terrific. The backs were terrific. Jalen Warren was awesome. But what a great job of giving your quarterback pocket presence and giving him pocket to throw. But if we can stop it just right, you see the accuracy in which he throws it. To throw it this quick to the left side, he picks the hardest throw, but he picks the one route that's going to give him a touchdown, not a first down. And that's what you have to applaud, and that's what you ultimately need in your quarterback, is you need guys that are going to get you touchdowns, not just first downs. So if he can carry this into Seattle, that will bode well for this offense.
And you can just head over to the Steelers official YouTube page to catch more of Merrill's playbooks. Well, Pittsburgh is heading to Seattle for the first time since 2015, and it will be pitting two of the winningest coaches in NFL history against each other. Coach Tomlin is in 14th with 179 combined wins, while Pete Carroll has one more and sits in 13th place. It's time now for your keys to the game presented by your neighborhood Ford store. Let's send it back one final time to Bob and Coach. Guys.
All right, Missy, thanks very much. Seattle, Pittsburgh. It's a big game. Both teams 8-7 coming in. You're going to see a couple of former Steelers out there. It looks like Devin Bush has been playing, but also Artie Burns has become a regular because of some injury in that game.
Yeah, both guys have been playing really well and contributing to their efforts. It'll be good to see those guys. It's always good to see guys move on in their careers and continue to feed their family and have success. But in regards to us, obviously that'll be a secondary component of what transpires in the stadium. We got to play, but they have to play as well. And I think that's something that has my attention this time of year as the road gets narrow. It's the group that doesn't blink. It's the group that does normal things, that doesn't act abnormal because of circumstance. We got to smile in the face of adversity, the urgency of late December ball and and hopefully we play like that. The team that does usually got a chance to win in those circumstances.
And the team that normally doesn't make mistakes. And your quarterbacks largely have not done that, Mason included last week, with no turnovers, 2 touchdown passes. That element of it, and the fact that you're at a very loud environment, very big, I would imagine, for the quarterback or anyone on your offense.
Ball security is going to be huge, not only environmentally, but just knowing Pete, as long as I've known Pete, fundamentally I know that ball searching is something that they value. You see it on their video, guys raking at balls and chase. The sack fumble game is a big component of what they do. And so we better take care of the football if we want to overcome Seattle and the environment.
How important is the run game in this one, given the fact that you're on the road in a loud place?
It's important. It's important because we better not be behind the chains. So you can't have a negative run game. You can't be highly penalized. That puts you one-dimensional behind the chains. In an environment like that is a recipe for disaster.
You mentioned Pete Carroll. You don't really see him on a regular basis, but you've known him over all these years. Do you have the same sort of relationship when it comes to knowing a coach like you would in your own division, only he's not in your division?
Without question. Pete's been doing it at a high level for such a long time. He's really good friends with Monty Kiffin, my former boss, was a defensive coordinator for us years ago when I was in Tampa. Pete used to be the head coach at Southern Cal. We'd go out there and spend time with him. He'd come to Tampa and spend time with us. And so those waters run deep. Philosophically, I understand where he's aligned, but I'm sure that he feels similarly about me. And so there's some intimacy there.
All right, Coach, all the best this week. Look forward to a great game.
Thank
Steelers, must-win situation, 8-7, coming off that big win against Cincinnati. They'll try to parlay that into another one on the road at Seattle. That's going to do it for our program tonight. Thanks for joining us. For Missy Matthews and head coach Mike Tomlin, I'm Bob Pompeani. Happy New Year, and we'll see you again next week.